So, hi everyone, bom dia a todas e todos. This is Wikidata Lab XVIII. It's our pleasure to keep going, keep the ball rolling for these events on integrating Wikidata with other Wikimedia projects. This event is taking place at the University of São Paulo at the lab called Research Innovation Dissemination Center for Neuromathematics, and is also organized by the user group Wiki Movement Brazil. The idea of this event is to bring people who are developing or exploring Wikidata to tell us what they are doing so that we can, to some extent, level up the community, the Brazilian community, of course, but also the global community with the developments and the infrastructure that is built around Wikidata. And today is our pleasure to receive, for the second time, Sandra Fauconnier, actually received remotely as technology has allowed us to do. Sandra Fauconnier is from the Wikimedia Foundation. She is one of the leaders in the development of structured data on commons. That is a process of integrating, structuring, and dynamics of query or web semantics onto the way that we share, store, find media files. This is a process that is ongoing. There are many new deployments. When Sandra Fauconnier gave her first presentation like 1 year ago, the process of structured data on commons was not actually deployed. So I remember the presentation was about what we can do to anticipate structured data on commons. And I'm very happy to say that now this is a reality. So today's presentation will be about what we can actually do and not what we will be able to do in the near future. So thank you so much, Sandra, to be here with us again. This is a real pleasure and an honor to have you. So with no further ado, I'll give you Sandra Fauconnier. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, João. And thank you for the super warm welcome. And it's fun for me to, even with the big distance between us, be part of your session again. I think you're doing a fantastic job there with Wikidata Labs. We are big fans, and I'm super happy to be here. Just a small correction. For some strange reason, people think I'm one of the bosses at Structured Data on Commons team. But my task, in fact, in the project is that I do the connection with the GLAM sphere. So my job is I'm working with the GLAM team at the foundation, and I work on pilot projects that use GLAM, files that use structured data in the GLAM field for the first time. And I make sure that information flows about the project as well as possible about GLAM. And in that sense, I also help to make sure that the feedback from our community, from the GLAM Wiki community, gets integrated into the project, and I help the community. And of course, I work very closely with the developers, but I'm not their boss or something. So I cannot tell them what to do, unfortunately. Although I would like to, but no, but that's just as a bit of context. As my background, I'm also a Wikimedian for a long time. I started editing Wikipedia in 2003 on the Dutch Wikipedia, so my maternal language is Dutch. And I got more and more involved in our community, and now I arrived at the Wikimedia Foundation. So that's a very short bit about me. But of course, the focus of your morning is going to be on all the new things that can be done with Wikimedia Commons. What I had in mind for the morning is first I want to repeat. Let me first say what the idea is a bit. First, I would like to give you a bit more of a formal presentation with slides telling you what is structured data on commons, what are we doing there, what is the connection with Wikidata. And then we will move on to looking at examples of what you can already do today so that you can have a look at what can be done. But then more and more, I would like to move on towards practical work so that this in your afternoon, you can, go to Wikimedia Commons and start doing all kinds of exercises yourself. That's a bit of a general idea that I have. I don't know for sure how long it will take. It also depends on your questions, the questions that you have in between. We can improvise a lot. I want to say you feel free to ask any questions in between. We can also have questions at the end, but also, whenever I say something and it feels unclear, just feel free to interrupt me. There's just one practical thing that when I have my presentation on my laptop, I cannot see you. So I will try to make a point myself to stop every now and then and say, are there any questions? And just feel free to also interrupt me when, there's a concrete question coming from the room.
Sandra,
or from YouTube.
Sorry, just interrupt. Just a little bit. People on the YouTube are telling us that the sound from your end is very low, and we are here from the streaming equipment at the highest volume possible. Is there something?
Okay.
I'm not sure what setting could be eventually changed on the microphone, maybe.
I don't know. I can try to increase my sound. Does it help at all? Or when I hold my microphone closer to my mouth?
Okay, let me just check with people on the YouTube channels.
Is this going better? I'm also going to my settings now.
People are saying that it's better now.
Is it better?
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm doing is actually I hold my microphone very close to my mouth.
Oh.
So, yeah. But whatever works, right? Good.
Sorry, thanks.
Please let me know whenever there are other technical problems, because we will try to accommodate it. Okay. Thanks. Good. Then going back to the presentation. So as I said, feel free, as you just did now, just interrupt me. No fear, just do that. And yeah, Joao, you already introduced structured data and commons a little bit yourself. I don't know how familiar people in the room are with Wikimedia Commons at all, if people are active contributors there, or if people upload pictures or edit pictures. But Wikimedia Commons is our Wikimedia movement's media repository. It is the place where we put the images for Wikipedia and the images that are also linked from Wikidata. But we also have videos there. We also have media audio files there. We also have three-dimensional files there, etc. And what is happening at the moment, actually the project itself is running at its end, is in the last 3 years, the team that I work for has been updating Wikimedia Commons. It's in fact been a very, very big software update behind the scenes to add structured metadata to the files on Commons. I will explain more what we are exactly doing and why we are doing it. But the general reason is we are adding data from Wikidata to describe files on Wikimedia Commons, to make them indeed structured, to make them machine readable, so that they become much more, I'm sorry, to make them much more uniformly described, so that machines and software can work with them a lot better, to make them multilingual. That is a very, very important reason, because until now, in fact, if you don't speak English and if you want to search Commons, for instance, in Portuguese or in Spanish or in Chinese, you will find a lot less results than you do in English. And that's one thing that Structured Data Commons wants to fix. So these are various things that we want to address by adding structured data to Wikimedia Commons. Excuse me, I'm just going to take a sip from my tea. Yes, this is better. So we want to make Commons easier to view, to search, especially to search, but also to edit. We wanted to also add and provide ways to organize and reuse the files on Commons in a better way. So this is the general, explanation about structured data on Commons. But now, what does that mean in practice? What are we doing? What is happening? And this is a very old picture. This is a very old schematic from the days when our features were not deployed yet. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. It looks a little bit different now. But what we are doing is, when you look at a file on Wikimedia Commons in the old way, before structured data on Commons, the files were described with wiki text, just like on Wikipedia. So whenever you would look at the source of a file, I'm sure everyone in the room is a Wikipedian, so you know how to do that. when you look at the source of a file, when you say edit, you will see that all the information about an image there, for instance, this image of The Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh, when you look at the information about it, it's all in plain text. It's all in wiki text. And in order to give it a bit of structure, our community has come up with templates, information templates, a bit like info boxes on Wikipedia to describe these files. And we also use categories to find the files. What we are adding now is, in fact, a section. It looks a bit different than here. It's another tab that is being added to the file page. We will come to that later. We will investigate it, where there's also links to Wikidata. So all kinds of things that you are used to when you edit Wikidata, statements, items, properties, all these kinds of things are now also added to files on Commons. And Commons reuses the data from Wikidata there. This is still a bit abstract, and I hope by looking at specific files, it will become clearer. So basically, this is kind of an image that shows a little bit the principle that what we want to do. If you have an image on Commons, for instance, a photograph that someone has taken, this is part of a photograph made for Wiki Loves Africa, the Wiki Loves Africa competition a few years ago. You can describe this now with Wikidata. You can say, this image, it shows a fishing net, it shows a fisherman, it shows a canoe, it shows water, it shows ripples. And the nice thing about Wikidata, as you all know, if you edit Wikidata all the time, or just every now and then, you know that Wikidata is built to be multilingual. So what that means is that if you would look at the data from, Brazilian Portuguese, if you would switch your language on Wikimedia Commons to Brazilian Portuguese, you would see that information in Portuguese, in Brazilian Portuguese. And that's in fact one of the bits of power that we hope structured data on Commons will bring. That's now, you can also search in Brazilian Portuguese for images with onda capilar. I hope that that's a good translation of ripples. I hope that that's the same thing. But if you want nice photos of ripples, you can say, give me onda capilar, and then the search will return that for you. So is that clear until now? Just checking in if there are already questions, as I promised. If I don't hear any quick responses, then I will just continue. We will look at many examples. So
there is one.
Yeah, there's one.
Hi, Sandra.
Hello.
This is Giovanna.
Hi, Giovanna. Hi.
Hi. So it's a simple question. For example, in this image that you are showing with the canoe, the examples that you put on the image, there is no key number for Ghana, for example. That should be an information that we can add. I saw that on the other image that you showed that you put the river, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
The location is an information that it's...
Yeah, absolutely. I'm now just opening the image for you.
Okay.
So this is the image on Commons. Don't be distracted by this pink color. That's because I'm editing with my staff account, and that this is just to indicate for myself that I'm in my staff account now. But so indeed, we're already running a bit forward to what I'm going to explain later, but it's not bad. So this is the image, and what you see, I will get back to that again, is that now you have captions. I will explain a bit later what that exactly is. And then you have a tab structured data, and then you indeed see you can add all kinds of other things like the Volta River. And you can also say add statement. Now we're going to add it actually. Location, Ghana. So it's in fact just the same system as you are used to on Wikidata. It looks slightly different, but the principle is the same. You can add statements here. So now I'm looking for Ghana, the country of Ghana. And I can publish this. So we've done an edit. That is what you were asking, is it?
Yes, that's exactly it. That's cool. I haven't seen that before. Just the other part, the box on the top
Yeah, this
part.
is super new.
Yeah.
Actually, that you can add licenses and locations. It's only, we are super lucky, like 8 days that we can do that. So I'm
that
super
was
happy that
the new thing that you guys.
yeah,
launched.
absolutely. So this is the other statements that you can add now. But yeah, I will explain it a bit more in depth, going back to the presentation. So, but this is a great question indeed, because what you see here in the picture is only showing, it's just, you know, an illustration of the principle. It's not really how it works on Commons itself. It shows the principle that you can tell what is depicted, what is shown in an image. So, you know, if you have a photo of a university building or an artwork, you can say it depicts this artwork. But you can also say a lot of other things about an image, like, you know, who made it, when was the image made, when was the photo made, on which geographical location, etc. And all these things can be added, and all these things are then links to Wikidata. But this is only showing the depicts for now. Yeah, just a very important thing to add to that. So this principle of structured data on Commons is something that the community on Commons has asked for a very long time, especially because of the multilingual aspects. It has always been a problem for Wikimedia Commons that you can, in fact, only search it in a very deep way when you know English and not other languages. So for a very long time, the community has said, we want Commons to become more multilingual. But when Wikidata came, our community has also realized, oh, Commons is kind of, Wikimedia Commons is kind of old-fashioned in the sense that it is only written in wiki text. It is not a real database, and having it as a real database will have so much, you know, advantages in terms of, you know, being able to build other software on top of it, to be able to use tools with it, this multilingual aspect, but also connections with Wikidata, etc. One question that is often asked is, so the current way that our community uses or tries to organize things on Wikimedia Commons is by adding categories. If you are a frequent user of Wikimedia Commons, you will be familiar with those. I have them on top of my page here because of a setting. They can also be at the downside of your page. You are also familiar with them on Wikipedia. So for instance, we have a category image from Wiki Loves Africa 2017 in Ghana. We have a category Volta River. And then if you click on Volta River, it has all kinds of subcategories. And if you look at the images that are inside there, there are maps, there are photos. Maybe there are old photos and new photos and artworks showing the Volta River. So it's a bit of a mixed bag what is in here. And well, with the category system as well as possible, we try to, you know, help people find things, but it's many people in our community say, okay, categories are also a bit confusing for especially new people to find things. And if you look at how other image databases do it, they do it mainly with things like tags, or if you look at Flickr, Flickr uses tags. It's kind of different system. So the hope of structured data is that it will make searching and finding things easier, not just because of the multilingual aspects, but also because you can tag things in a much more fine-grained way. Like for instance, bridges over the Volta River. When you would, you know, I don't know, describe that, when you would go to an image here, you would say this depicts this bridge, and the bridge is over the Volta River and it is in Ghana. So I don't know, with adding structured data from Wikidata, I'm not sure if I'm making myself very clear, but we are adding more fine-grained and more granular ways of searching. You will also be able to query it at some point. It's not deployed yet, but at some point it will be possible to query it, just like you can query Wikidata in a much more refined way than you can do with categories. So one of the ideas behind structured data in Commons is that it will help to find things better, in addition to categories. So an important thing to say is that we are, especially from the development team, we are not taking away categories at all. They are staying there. The templates are also staying there. What we see that is possible, and it really depends on the community of Wikimedia Commons, is that at some point the community will say, structured data is now, you know, so present on so many files that it even helps us to search for things better, and that some categories will disappear. I know that there are some community members that have a very strong opinion on that, that really want that to happen very quickly, and other community members think, no, categories still useful, especially, you know, for curating content, etc., for, you know, making your own collections of content or something like that. So, but it's not the goal of structured data and commons to remove categories, but it should help to find things better. But if the community decides to use less categories because of structured data, that's of course totally fine. But these two features will stay together, will stay in parallel for a very long time, probably. Just to make that clear, because I often get a lot of questions about that. Are there any questions until now? Maybe some people in the room are using categories very often, or are using templates on Wikimedia Commons.
Sandra, I have a question, João, about what you mean
Yes.
by replacement. So the idea would be to actually use some sort of script to take information from categories and relocate them onto the template, I don't know how to say that, but the forms that are used for the structured data on commons. Wouldn't there be a problem about licensing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, there has been discussion about that actually already on Commons, and that's a very good thing that I actually forgot to mention in my presentation, and I should add that. All the structured data that you add to Wikimedia Commons is just like all the data on Wikidata CC0. And the reason why the community has decided to do that, there has been quite a majority of the community going for that, is just like, you know, the decision that was made for Wikidata is that we want to make that data as reusable as possible. If you want to reuse data that is licensed under a more strict license, and you want to combine data from different sources, that becomes very complex often in terms of copyright. And putting it CC0, it's not only considered best practice, but it just makes it easier for your reusers. That said, all the unstructured data on Commons or all the wiki text data is CC by share alike. It is the generic Wikimedia license. And the kind of general idea that people have is that little bits of facts, little bits of factual data are not copyrightable. So those should be pretty fine to transfer. It becomes a bit more muddled and a bit more difficult to say that when you really talk about longer descriptions, for instance, when you talk about a text description that, you know, is like 2-3 sentences long, someone has done some creative work, and that is something that you cannot so easily, you know, change to structured data and then say we switch it from you know, license to public domain, basically. So that would not be good. But in fact, all the structured data that we currently add is quite small. It is mostly like Wikidata statements. One exception is the captions, which I will talk about a bit later. Those are like little small sentences, and there I think is the biggest gray zone. So to answer your question, if tools will come that will help to convert data from the wiki text to the structured data, from categories to structured data, from templates to structured data, I think it's important to check that what you convert is like very small bits of data, you know, and bits of data that are really very, you know, explicit. Like, you know, the user that has uploaded this, I mean, that's just a very clear bit of information, and that cannot be copyrighted in itself. Or someone has already said that something has a category, the Volta River, so there is a connection to the Volta River. And if you add a bit more data to that, then it's then that data goes on structured data. I don't know, does that answer your question a little bit, at least?
Yes, thank you, Sandra.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you for this question, because it's really important to note. And there has been some previous community discussion on the talk page of the Structured Data on Commons project about that. And it will probably still be, you know, for a very long time, we will have this question like, is this information that we will convert to structured data not copyrightable? And it's definitely something to keep in mind when you are going to work on it as well. Yeah. So, yeah, I already talked about, we have a talk page that is quite active. What you see here is just a screenshot of the general information portal about structured data and commons. Just FYI, if you want to find information about the project, it has a very active talk page. As I said, you can ask questions there. Maybe some of you are already subscribed to the newsletter. We're not super active with the newsletter, I have to admit. But so this is the general central information portal. I think as the project almost ends now, I have a kind of a vague plan. It's not very set in stone yet, and it depends on how much time I have. But I probably will help to transform this portal a bit more into documentation, how to do things, rather than now it's really more explanation about what we are doing, what is going on in the project, and what features are being deployed. But as time grows, you know, it's probably better to just have documentation here, like how should you use structured data and where do you find information about that. So just a quick overview of what the new features are and all the differences between last year, as you mentioned. I'm also super happy that now we can actually work with actual features. At this moment, you can add file captions to files on Wikimedia Commons. You can add depict statements, even with qualifiers. And if you edited Wikidata before, you will know very well what qualifiers are. And you can also add, as we already saw, other statements, the creator, the license, the location, etc. You can add most of these by going to a page of a file and just clicking on the structured data tab and adding that. You can use Upload Wizard to add these things. I'm actually not sure if other statements are already supported by Upload Wizard. I haven't tested that yet. I haven't done an upload in the last 8 days, so I'm not quite sure. And if you are technically inclined, I don't know if there are people in the room who do any kind of bot work or who build tools, but if you do that, you can already use the API and do edits via the API. I know that some of our community members have already done quite a lot of bot work of conversions to structured data, and if you are interested in doing that with PyWikibot, it should be possible. I'm not a coder myself, so I cannot really give you the practical information on how to do that, but I can point you to community members who can help. So yeah, now we can actually move on to looking at more examples, because
Sandra,
I think
sorry, there is a question here, but not from YouTube, from
yes,
someone
yes,
from
yes,
Facebook
please.
who wasn't able to ask a question on the YouTube, and who is asking you mention a time frame for structured data on Commons from 2017 to 2019, and that person, I'm not sure if I can say his name. Well, he'll let me know if I can say his name. He's asking if this means that the project is over, or if you, I'm guessing he's asking if you could provide a context of how this.
Oh, that's a super good question. Yeah, as I said, I'm not a person who manages the follow-up of this. What I can tell you is that Structured Data and Commons from 2017 to 2019, the project has been funded by an external funder. So it's not coming from the money that even my salary is paid from, and my colleagues. It's not coming from the donations that our donors have done, but it's coming from the Sloan Foundation. It's an American fund that gives money to all kinds of cultural projects, etc. And their fund, their subsidy is indeed running from 2017 until the end of December 2019. And that's why, we have this very restricted period in which we do want to finish this specific piece of work and falling within that grant. That said, of course, the team working on this, and everyone knows that this is super important for the community. In the 3 years that we have worked, we have been able to, we will have been able to add some very basic support for this, and there's a lot more to do. I'm all for working more on it. To my knowledge, within the foundation, there hasn't been any very super strong decision yet on how much time will be dedicated to it. But I would be surprised that we would stop by the end of December. At the foundation, there is now also a structured data team, the former multimedia team at the foundation. led by Ramsey Eiler, is now the structured data team, and that team will continue working on structured data as a whole for all our projects, including for Wikimedia Commons. I cannot give you very concrete things yet on whether specifically structured data and commons will be continued very deeply, or if we will work more broadly on structured data, but it will definitely stay a focus, an area of focus. I'm sorry I have to be so vague, because really we haven't made very strong decisions yet of what happens after 2019. I know that there will be continued conversations also with the Sloan Foundation to see if they want to continue funding this, and maybe other funds will also come in that are willing to pay for continued development. And I would say, as a feedback for the community, I think if there is a strong community wish that there is a strong commitment from the foundation on this, it always helps if you tell us very literally, so that we know that you want this to happen. So if you see that, until the end of 2019, we are developing the basic features, but there's, for instance, something that you really want to see happening that is not being developed yet, please be explicit about that, because that really helps us to make the case that it should happen. Yeah, that's the best I can say. I hope that's a satisfying answer for the kind person on Facebook. And I'm sure I will figure out who it was, because I'm also on Facebook, so I will check back. And I'm happy also to answer questions there if you're willing, if you're okay with that. So yeah, but so indeed, a bit later in my presentation, I will show you a list of features that we still want to develop, because what I showed you so far, I think this slide, it's only the start. Not everything is there yet. What isn't here yet is searching. The search is really not implemented yet. It's not deployed yet. Querying is something that is super important that we still want to happen. There is at this moment a lot of discussion about Lua. I know that you, in one of the previous Wikidata labs, I think you have had also Wikidata lab with Mike Peel and with maybe with other people who use Lua to use Wikidata in templates on Wikipedias. It can also be super useful on Commons, and it's not implemented yet. All these things, they still need to happen. So we know, there's still so much work to do, and part of it can be done in 2019 still, but a lot of it will be for later. So tell us what you want, basically.
Okay, so
let us know.
Oh, so now we have a question on the YouTube. Sorry, I interrupted you. I thought you
No problem. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So there is a question on the YouTube channel from Snowdrop Productions.
Okay.
And he or she is asking, will structured data from Commons be useful for Wikipedia?
That's a good question. Yes, it will be just as useful as Wikidata itself, in the sense that you will be able to take data from Wikimedia Commons just as you can take data from Wikidata and use it in info boxes, use it in templates. And I think it depends on the Wikipedia community how far you can go with it. One immediate application that I can think about is the captions that are added on Wikimedia Commons can also be used on Wikipedia. There might be other data about images that you want to show in info boxes, etc. So technically, totally. And I think, what kind of data you want to use is really something to investigate as a community. The sky is the limit, I would say. And I kind of predict that some Wikipedias will be a bit more reluctant, just like with Wikidata, and some Wikipedias will be, very experimental and will try things out, and we welcome everything. So yeah, but technically, yes, it's totally possible. It's in fact just like Wikidata. If you look at the APIs, they are not super different. As soon as we have Lua support, I think it should be straightforward to do it in the same way. Then yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. Any other questions, or does that answer the question?
I think so far no.
Okay, good. Then I will dive more into some examples, because these will bring things to life, I think. And I have a set of examples going from simple to more complex. At first, I have to give the caveats. I don't know if that's a word in Portuguese at all. It's in fact a Latin word, watch out. Because this is only like 8 days old, this technology. Besides depicts, the other kinds of statements that you can add about a file, there is still a lot of openness about that. It's not, Wikidata is now, how old is Wikidata? 7 years? Oh my God. Now at Wikidata, we have a way of doing things, right? We know how to describe a human being on Wikidata. We know how to describe a painting on Wikidata. We have our agreed ways to do that. But for files, we don't yet. So whatever I show you is super experimental, and it's done by the community at this moment in just the course of 8 days. But there's a lot of work to be done, but we will get to that later. Now, if we look at this specific picture, it is a featured picture of something we all know, and I like too much, it's sugar cubes. I like my sugar, I like sweet things. So it's a black and white photo of 12 sugar cubes. And it is a photo by Dietmar Rabich, and it is a featured picture on Wikimedia Commons. So Wikimedia Commons, if you're not super familiar with the website, it also has, the community also decides and designates good photos. So if you make very good photos of high quality, you can have them nominated to be featured pictures or to be good pictures, and you can get a little, label to state that they are featured pictures. And then you also even have pictures of the day. So every day there is one featured picture that is put in the spotlight. So there's the quality control as well on Wikimedia Commons. And this one is a featured picture. Now, the first thing that's, this, I think, in fact, I already showed, but I just want to emphasize it again. This is what the file looks like on Wikimedia Commons on a file page. And we have a very tiny new bit of interface in the file page, and that is 2 tabs. A tab that says file information and structured data. If you switch your language, or if you use Commons in Portuguese or in another language, of course, these will be named differently. These will be in a different language, but you will see those 2 tabs under the image. I'm not sure if everyone in the room has already seen this. It might be a little bit subtle, but that's totally new there. I think it has been around since March or something. Now going on, the first thing that was deployed for structured data on Commons, the first feature, is probably also our most confusing feature. It is file captions. Under file information, now on top of a page, you can see that you can add captions to a file. And captions are, in fact, if you are familiar with Wikimedia Commons, I'm gonna open the file actually itself so that we can check it, how it looks like there. And if someone has it open, feel free to edit it in Portuguese as well. Can everyone see this? If you don't, please shout. We have a lot of captions here. 2 more languages. Polish, not yet Portuguese, but I'm sure someone will edit. Multilingual captions. These are kind of, if you know Wikidata, the equivalent of, it's never quite clear to me if it's the label or the description. I think it's technically, it is the description, the label of Wikidata. Although it looks like a description, that's already the kind of a little bit the confusing thing about them. But the primary goal of them is quite clear in the sense that this is just a little bit of text that can be made multilingual. It is not wiki text, so you cannot add links to it. You cannot add wiki links to it. You cannot do crazy markup on it. It's just very simple plain text with which you can very briefly describe what is in the file. It is, I believe, only 200 and a bit more characters, so it's only also very, very short. You cannot make this into 1 or 2 paragraphs. It's just 1 line that is used to describe. And in fact, the main function of the captions is to make search easier. It is an addition to all the Wikidata statements that you will get about the file. In addition, it will help with search. If you scroll down, you will see that the file also has a description in the wiki text. And in this case, it is the same. In the wiki text description, in the wiki text templates, you can indeed add hyperlinks. You can add all kinds of, wiki text things. You can even include templates there. So that's a bit of a different use. This is really part of the structured data, and this is still part of the wiki text. Any questions so far? Because I know that this is the most confusing feature. It was the first one that we deployed. And I think our community is also still trying a little bit to figure out apart from making these useful for search, if this is also captions that can be used on Wikipedia, for instance, or another discussion that is going on, and I'm not sure if it has been resolved yet, is whether we can use captions or something like it for accessibility purposes. So if you are a blind person and you come across this image of sugar cubes, do you want to have some kind of help, textual help? I'm not an accessibility expert myself, but maybe we want to think as a community of having some kind of help for people who are blind or not seeing well, to help them know that this photo shows 12 sugar cubes. Maybe that's helpful. Maybe that can be solved in captions or maybe in another way. But this is still being discussed by the community. Any questions so far? I'm just going to do a quick check-in on this.
Can you just clarify the difference between a caption and the description? So
yes.
would it be the same?
The caption is technically part of the structured data. So technically it is part of the Wikidata bit that is integrated into Wikimedia Commons. The description is part of the wiki text. So technically they are stored in different places. The caption it's easier to put more languages in here. The interface is easier. Captions can only be plain text, so you cannot add hyperlinks, you cannot add wiki text. In the description, you can add hyperlinks and wiki text, and you can make them a lot longer. Captions are only 200 something characters, and descriptions can be as long as you want them to be. Maybe I should make a slide out of that. I think that's a very good question of yours that I should add to my presentation. But I hope this helps in making the distinction between both. Does that add a little bit more clarity or more confusion even?
What is confusing is that in this particular example, they're exactly the same thing.
Yes, yeah.
As content, not as the technical form in which they are embedded in the structure of the file. So that's why the difference is the year.
Yeah, the difference is also if you will go to the API, and especially the structured data API that is now also available from Wikimedia Commons, the captions will be included in there. So you will, just like with the API of Wikidata, you will be able to retrieve these captions, while the description here and the template, it will also be part of the MediaWiki API, but it will be much, much harder to parse. For people who are more technically inclined, it will be part of the wiki text and you will have to parse it out. While here, you will clearly be able to retrieve those as very separate fields from the API. I don't know if that also helps with giving a bit of distinction there. I'm happy that I start with the most confusing things first, because the rest is, I think, simpler to understand. Are there any other questions at this point?
I don't think so.
Not really? Okay. If questions arise while you watch the presentation and you want to come back to the captions or anything else, I will be very happy to answer them as well then. So no problem for that. But so captions. And a next feature, and that has been, I think, around for, I forgot when they were deployed. April? Around April, I think. Sorry, I have to go back one slide. Another feature that has been added is you can add depicts statements to a file. Why did we start with depicts? This is a typical Wikidata statement. Just like if you have edited paintings on Wikidata or you have edited photographs on Wikidata, you will probably have added depict statements. You will have said, this painting depicts an angel, it depicts a certain politician, it depicts, I don't know, a certain kind of animal. That same kind of thing can now be done with files on Wikimedia Commons. Many of the files on Wikimedia Commons are simple photographs made for Wikilove's monuments, made for all kinds of competitions, made during Wiki Takes kind of tours, made when people are on the street and they make photos of interesting things. This image of the sugar cubes is also a good example of that. It is a digital photograph and it shows sugar cubes. And so that's a very basic thing that is super handy to have. It's also something that most of the people will search for on Commons. Give me a photo of a red car. I want to have a nice photo of Route 66. I want to have a nice photo of this type of butterfly. So that is what most people will look for. And so that has been the first statement that has been enabled, because that's a very central statement for media files, if that makes sense at all. And in this case, the statement says, this picture on Commons, this photo depicts a sugar cube, and you can add qualifiers. If you edited Wikidata, you have also worked with qualifiers, I'm sure. You can do all kinds of qualifiers. In this case, you can say the number of sugar cubes, it's 12, and the color of the sugar cubes is white. You can do all kinds of things. You can have a person depicted who has a mustache, wears a mustache, wears a certain kind of hat, etc. So these are also all the kinds of things you can add. What kind of qualifiers are acceptable? I mean, that's up to the community. That's where, you know, we have to start thinking about the data modeling and about how we want to build this model, these models of how to add data to files on Commons. The quantity one is already used a few times. The color one is obvious, but there are probably many, many more that we can think about. I was thinking maybe we want to say something about the background as well, but I couldn't immediately find it. So all these are things that we want to think about, I think, at this point. And then just 8 days ago, I'm sorry, the last bit of functionality that was implemented is other statements that you can add. So besides depicts, you can now also add all kinds of other statements. You know, the creator, the photographer of this file is Dietmar Rabig. He has a Wikidata item. That will not be the case for every Wikimedian. So, but in this case, we have a photographer who has a Wikidata item, so you can link to him. It has a license. We have licensing information on Wikimedia Commons. In fact, all the Creative Commons licenses have a Wikidata item, so you can add these. And then, as I said, it is a featured picture and a quality image, so we can also add the quality assessment to it. These are just a few examples of statements that you can add. Many, many more are possible. Maybe we want to say this is a black and white image. I don't know how to say that, but we can add that as a statement. And that's maybe something for the exercise later today to try out. So this is the basic functionality that is there. As soon as you will start editing, and I will go back to the image once more, you will see that there are many things that you cannot add yet also. Just like on Wikidata, if you are familiar with Wikidata a little bit, you will know that there is a thing called data types on Wikidata. You can have a property that links to an item, right? Depicts sugar cube, and this is property links to a Wikidata item. But you could also have properties that link to a URL, or you could have properties and statements that link to geo-coordinates or to time, to a date. These are not implemented yet. So I'm sorry, but we're not fully deployed yet. All these other types of data types, just like on Wikidata, each of them will be released one by one because each of them needs work to be deployed by itself. So that's something that will follow in the upcoming month or months, that you will see that it becomes possible to add more and more data types. For now, you can do, I think, strings, although I haven't encountered these yet. So that's maybe also something to try. You can add quantities, just like here. Oh, shape cube, someone edited it. Yes, haha, I'm very, very proud of you. I'm very happy. So I said strings, you can add quantities, and you can, of course, add items, but the other ones not yet. So if you want to do something with geo-coordinates, keep it in mind for the future, but it's not technically possible yet. I think through the API, you can already do it, but through the interface, not yet. Are there any questions up till now about either the depicts statement or other statements? I see a microphone moving around.
Hi. Hi, Sandra.
Hello.
I have a question for the future of this
Yes.
functionality. In a painting, I think, seção de estado, we have in the depicts of the painting, we have the position. It's a painting about people. So
Yeah.
Each people has depicts a statement on Wikidata. So we have the position of the person on the painting. Is there a plan for implement when we add the position in the structured data, a note is shown at the image?
Yes, there is a plan. We have had that on our radar since the beginning, in fact, already, because we think that's super powerful that you will know where a certain thing is being depicted and being shown. I'm just not quite sure when it can be implemented, because first we have a lot of other things to work on, including these other data types, etc. But it's definitely on the timeline. So my answer is yes. That being said, I'm gonna move on in the presentation to a bit more complexity about paintings as well. So we'll still have a lot of thinking to do about how it specifically works for paintings and for sculptures, etc. Because these are a little bit special cases, but for photographs and everything, yes, it is in the plan. Does that answer your question? Can I help with more answers? Or?
It is answered. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
We also have a question on the YouTube from Jen Ainali. I'm sorry if I'm
mispronouncing. Hello. Hey.
And the question is, are bots planned to transfer things that are in templates of the Commons now into structured data?
Well, bots are a community thing. It's not something that we as the development team do, because it would be interfering in content and not so much in the software. That said, I know that there are already bots busy doing things. And we totally welcome the community to do that. Please, community, everyone who hears it and everyone who wants to operate bots, think about what you want to do and just go ahead and do it. It is technically possible. Two examples is actually the creator of this specific file, of the sugar cubes file, Dietmar Rabich. This community member has already run a bot over his own uploads. So that's actually how we discovered. He was very early to add other statements, and we just checked his edits, and he did it by bot. He did it with his own bot. Another example we will see later in the presentation, that's Multichill, Maarten Dammers, our very active community member who works on some whole paintings. He has already done a lot of bot edits on paintings files, adding structured data to them. So the answer is yes, but it's up to the community to do that, and feel free to do it if you want to. I would definitely recommend you, because again, I want to repeat that the modeling of the data is still super young. It's only 8 days. It's still like a newborn baby. I would first consult the community about it, especially if you have questions about how should I convert certain information, how should I translate certain information to structured data, what properties should I use. If you have any questions about it, go to the talk page of Structured Data Commons first and talk with people there. It is, as I said, a very active talk page. The community follows it. So yeah, but yes, go ahead with bots. Beside bots, I also expect we already have tools that do it. I'm going to give some examples of it later in the presentation. I've heard that you can edit structured data in the Wikimedia Commons app on Android. I don't have an Android phone myself, so I'm so sorry, but I haven't been able to try it. I'm almost inclined to get myself an Android phone because I want to see it. But the Android telephone app, people for the Commons app, people have also implemented this. It's of course not the batch things that bots do, but you can add structured data with it. So many tools will be built. I know that there's also already some basic, very, very basic and very buggy support in quick statements. It's not recommended to try it on a big scale yet because it's still very error prone. But so yeah, in brief, yes, but it's a community thing. And you know, if people want to write bots and develop tools, by all means, go ahead. I hope that answers. And hi, Jan. Any other questions at this point? Oh, it's already an hour further. Oh, that's good.
Good to go, and Jan is thanking you for the answer.
Thanks, Jan. Well, then I suggest we continue, and I will check back in again. I'm going to more complexity now. So what we have done now is just looked at a very simple example. It's a super simple photo, right, of sugar cubes. It is a digital photo. It's not a digitized photo, so it's not a digitization of a physical photograph. No, it's someone who has gone with a digital camera and made a digital photo of sugar cubes. But as soon as you start working in the GLAM field, you have different kinds of things, right? You have photos of creative works. GLAM files are special. I'm very happy with these slides. Of course, GLAM files are special. For instance, you can have photographs of sculptures. You can have files that show paintings that are in fact digitized representations of paintings. One of the parts of my job has been, since the beginning of the project, to talk a lot with, of course, GLAM community members, GLAM Wiki people, but also to talk with people from cultural institutions about this issue. Like, hey, we are going to work with structured data from now on Wikimedia Commons. Do you have any wishes and any advice for us? And one of the organizations that I've been talking with is Europeana. Europeana is the European platform that brings together cultural heritage, the digital files from many, many museums and archives and libraries in Europe. We have very good contact with them. Liam Wyatt, one of our community members, works there as a Wikimedia in residence or as a Wikimedia ambassador. So, and they've always been super helpful in advising us. And one of the big things that they have said from their experience working with a big image portal is what you have to do when you deal with cultural heritage is you have to distinguish. You will have things that are cultural objects, sculptures, prints, maps, manuscripts, paintings. These are creative works. And then you will have files, digital files that show these, that represent these, that are digitizations of these. And you have to distinguish between both. I will explain why we need to do that, why it's problematic. And it makes it more complex. And my colleagues, I know my colleagues don't like me because of this. I'm just joking. But you know, it would be nice if things were super simple and if we could store all the structured data in one place, but that's not exactly the case. I will start with one slightly simpler example. This is a photo by the same photographer, Dietmar Rabich, who has done his bot work and edited a lot of structured data. And he has made also photos of artworks. So what you see here is a photograph of an abstract artwork in Bonn in Germany. I'm sure that in Brazil you have many of these artworks as well, and you might have made even photos of them, and you might have Wikidata items about these artworks, public artworks. So what we have here is a photograph of a creative work. And on Wikimedia Commons at this moment, we have many different photos of that specific artwork. If I count well, we have 13 of them. Some of them are made by Dietmar, but some of them are made by other volunteers. And every one of them shows it in a slightly different perspective. Here you see someone who has, you know, just walked around the sculpture and photographed it from every angle, which is super helpful. You could also imagine that someone has even made a video of it, right? And all of these are, you know, digital representations of this work. Now, what the situation is, what kind of is being advised to us to do, and our community is already kind of thinking in that direction quite well, is that the information about the creative work, about the work itself, is stored on Wikidata, and the digital representations with the data about these representations on Wikimedia Commons. That probably sounds super abstract. I hope I can make it a little bit more concrete. I will show one example before allowing questions because that will clarify a lot. So the work is called Integration 76 and it has a Wikidata item. and it is made by the sculptor Hans-Dieter Bonnet. It's made in, the sources differ in opinion, so some sources say 1976, some sources say 1986, but Wikidata can do that, right? It shows a sphere. It is a sculpture of a sphere, right? And the copyright status is it's copyrighted because, you know, it's a recent work. The artist has died only a few years ago, and that means it's copyrighted in almost every, or probably in every legislation around the world. But then when you go to one of the pictures of that work, and it's not the same one as you saw before, this photo is made by Wikimedian Hans Wijngaards. Its photo is not made by Hans-Dieter Bonnet. The photo has been made by Wikimedian. And it shows, of course, this picture, or this artwork, I'm sorry. So what you have on Commons then is it depicts the artwork, and on top of that, what you see here, the second line, Langer Eugen, is this specific photo also shows a building in the background, and that building's name is Langer Eugen. I don't know how you translate a specific name. So this photo shows a sculpture and a building, and actually also a tree and grass and other things. While the Wikidata item, of course, has nothing to do with those, right? Except that maybe in the Wikidata item, you could say that the sculpture is next to this building. I don't even know if we can model that or if you want to. And then going back to the photo also is copyrighted, but it has the CC BY SA 2.0 Germany license because the creator of that photo has given it that license. This is the kind of complexity we will have to deal with GLAM files. Are there any questions now? This makes everything a little bit more, you know, difficult to work with, of course, but I'm sure, you know, because most of you will have worked with GLAM files, it's definitely something that we can think about together. Yeah, I welcome any questions that there are now or any remarks.
Okay, Sandra, this is very complicated. So,
is it?
Yes. So I was thinking about Eder's question about the example of the painting that we have very specifically described.
Yeah.
So, of course, we have described each of the elements of the actual painting, giving its relative position to the actual item. But imagine there is a picture of part of the painting, or a picture that is a slight modification of the painting. So it will be depicting the same painting, but the position might be different, but then we would be only connecting it to the item, as far as I understood your example.
Not necessarily. It's a great question. What you will have in that situation is that probably your detail photos or your detail images will be a derivative of other Commons files. And so you will also be able to say, have statements on Wikimedia Commons that say, this image is a derivative or an excerpt of another image. And then pointing to Wikidata, not to Wikidata, I'm adding confusion myself, not to Wikidata, but to a Wikimedia Commons file. So one Wikimedia Commons file can, of course, be a derivative of another Wikimedia Commons file, and that you can also model in structured data on Wikimedia Commons. And still, you can indeed also then point to the Wikidata item of the work. Are you now scratching your head and rolling your eyes, or I know it is a big thought exercise. I have to be super honest with that.
I'm sorry, the other methodology which is just duplicate everything. So we will have it on Wikidata and also have it on Commons and make sure it's consistent and have it be made consistent.
That is a very good remark, I think. It is always tricky to have duplication of data, and that's actually why I also put this slide here and have this very clear distinction. If you have duplication of things, if something goes, you know, different in one site or another site, then how do you synchronize between both? Maybe we will come up with systems for that. I don't know. It's quite possible that as a community we decide it's okay to have the data in both places and we want to have software that synchronizes it. But it's also possible that we will have decisions at a certain point where we say, no, this data goes on Wikidata other data goes on Commons, we should not duplicate. Yeah. It's probably helpful to look at examples, I think, and to start thinking about it. As I said again, I will repeat it. It's really only the beginning of our thinking about this. And I mean, I also don't have the truth inside myself. I'm also trying to figure it out. And it's definitely something up for the community as a whole to start to think how to model this. Yeah. Any other questions at this moment? Are people still following along? I'm almost done with the complicated examples, I have to say. So there's one more following here, and then I think we can move more into the practical work. Yeah. So shall I continue?
Yeah, I think.
Or are there other questions? Good. Then, okay, going back to this example. This is a very simple photograph of a sculpture. We also have, of course, and I know that you do that a lot in the GLAM work, also in Brazil, you have many paintings or, I don't know, two-dimensional works for which you have done uploads to Wikimedia Commons. If you have a literal digital digitization of a two-dimensional artwork, we, a technical term to call that is a faithful digital representation of a two-dimensional artwork. In English, people sometimes call this digital surrogates. Maybe in Portuguese, you have a specific term for that. But these are a lot of the GLAM files that we will have on Commons. It is, photos indeed, or scans that show paintings or maps, etc. This is just an example that I took from the recent bot work that Multichill has done, that Maarten Dammers has done. He has done quite a bit of uploads recently with structured data. This is one from the Swedish Statens Museum for Kunst, but I could also have used an example from Brazil, and maybe later we can look at one of those. Here, in fact, we have a little bit the same situation, right? So we have the Wikidata item of the painting. And that Wikidata item has, as a creator, Jan Breugel. The painting is made in 1602, and it shows angels, devils, heaven, etc., etc. In fact, these depict statements have not been added to the item yet, so there's still work to do there, but theoretically these could be added. And now this property is in fact only relevant for Commons. The painting itself is public domain because Jan Breugel the Elder is already dead for many centuries, so definitely public domain. And then if we go to this specific image on Wikimedia Commons, then you would say actually that digitization was not really made by Jan Breugel the Elder. The digitization was done by the museum, right? Maybe in some cases, you know the specific name of the photographer. In some cases, you will have partners, GLAM partners, that will tell you this photographer has made the digitization for us and please mention his name. And that's totally fine to do. Sometimes you will have the date of digitization, not always. I think in most cases we don't know that, but it's probably quite recent. It's probably somewhere 2010, 2015, I don't know. And then this photo, in fact, kind of, if you follow the same logic as with the sculpture, it depicts the painting. And then that painting, of course, depicts angels and devils and heaven. But if we follow the logic of the previous slides, we would say these depicts, unless we decide to do the data duplication, this is something that belongs on Wikidata, and this is something that belongs on Wikimedia Commons. And we already have a very specific property for this specific case of work. For the faithful digital representations of two-dimensional artworks, we have a property that is only used on Wikimedia Commons, so not on Wikidata, which is called digital representation of. And there you can point to the Wikidata item of the artwork. In this case, the museum has given this digital representation the CC0 license, so you can add that as well. Although technically on Commons, we consider it public domain. And you can combine both, of course. Oh, I've put this. I forgot a slide. Oh my God. Oh well, it is what it is. what was I going to say? No, I was actually going to link to this file and then show how this looks like. So when we go to the picture on Commons, the file on Commons, I make a point of calling it a file. Then you indeed see that it has been tagged with depicts the last judgment and digital representation of the last judgment. This is till now what Multichill has done with paintings. So for the Sum of All Paintings project, Multichill has done a lot of bot work to add these kind of statements already. So you will see them a lot, maybe even on Brazilian uploads. I don't know if he's already passed by your uploads. If you look at the history and then you go to his bots edits, it's bot Multichill. He already did it in July. You can check if some of your files have been part of that. You can also check through looking at some examples, of course. And if not, you can try to add them by hand. Any questions so far also about these digital representations? This is probably, the area where I expect there will be a lot of community discussion, and it will take a while for us to figure out exactly how we want to do this. No questions at this moment? I see some pressing on of microphones. Hello. Hi.
Good morning. I have a question because of this despite. For a question of accessibility, it's not a good idea have this angel devil heaven and also in Wikimedia Commons, because sometimes we have one person that have some accessibility issues, and this could improve the how this person reads this image, and maybe it's a good idea.
Absolutely. And also for search. In fact, if you want to search Wikimedia Commons and you want to find images of the last judgment, you want to find this one as well, right? So that's actually, I wanted to show you what is coming next I'm just going to skip this, but we're coming back to that. So I already told you that next things that will be developed, that you will be able to add more data types. But on top of that, more development is, of course, search and depicts of depicts. That sounds a bit abstract, but it's in fact going to answer what you just said. In this case, this painting depicts angels and it depicts the Last Judgment as a religious theme. So if on Wikimedia Commons you say that something depicts an artwork, and then that artwork on Wikidata has another depict statement itself, so you have like a two-step depicts, right? We want to include that in the search on Commons. So that should kind of also answer technically on this problem of duplication. If you add all the depicts things that belong there on Wikidata for an artwork, and then you say this depicts this artwork, then the search will find that for you as well. Does that answer the question? It is an upcoming thing that we want to include in the search as a functionality.
Thank you.
Yeah, good.
And Sandra, we have another question here now from people.
Yes, please.
From someone from the YouTube channel, Snowdrop Productions again. Should depicts P180 be used to describe example landscape of a photo?
Can you please repeat the question?
So the question is, should we use depicts, P180 statement, for instance, to describe the photo?
Oh, and now your sound was breaking off. I'm very sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I'll repeat. So the question is, should we use the depict statement P180 to describe landscapes of photos? This is coming from Snowdrop Productions.
And I'm not sure what exactly is made. Do you mean by landscape orientation of photos? Is that what is meant in the question? Like you have portrait orientation and landscape orientation, or that a photo shows a landscape?
I don't know, Sandra. I just...
Yeah.
wait
it is
for
a
Snowdrop
YouTube question.
Productions to.
Yeah. In any case, I can try to answer both. That a photo shows a landscape, definitely yes. If you have photographs on Wikimedia Commons that show landscapes, say P180 landscape. If I think it's actually a good idea, and I haven't thought about it yet, but it's maybe also very helpful to have structured data that says this is an image in landscape orientation, and this is an image in portrait orientation, but that would not be depicts, I think. I think we would use a different property for that. I don't know if that makes sense at all. So now I've answered the two interpretations that I have of this question, but maybe there's a third, so I will be happy to answer those as well.
And he or she's clarifying that what the question meant about the object in the photo.
Yes, yeah, definitely if it shows a landscape. There is actually already documentation on Wikimedia Commons about how to use depict statements. Let me try to find these for you. If we go to the information page about structured data, then, we should change this page and make it a bit more clear. Let me see, Commons column depicts. This one already, this is community written documentation. It is not translated into Portuguese yet, but feel free to start doing that if you feel inclined. But it is also still, of course, in progress and being written. This documentation page is kind of community input on how to use depict statements, what items to add, whether do you want to make them prominent or not. That's something actually that I did not tell you yet, that you can add certain items as being prominent. So let's go to this one. This bridge over the River Volta. Does this bridge have a Wikidata item? Oh, we can already do some editing. The Adomi bridge, yes, it has a Wikidata item. So what I'm going to do is, I'm gonna say depicts Adomi bridge, and then you can say mark as prominent. If something is really big in the picture, is the most important topic, you can say it is prominent. It is a little bit like the, how do you call it in Wikidata, these little very subtle arrows where you can say this statement is deprecated or this statement is preferred. It's a bit similar to that. So that's also stuff that you can do. Going back to the answer that I was giving. So yes, indeed, I would say depicts landscape. And if you are in doubt what to add for depicts, it's always better to add more depict statements than less at this moment, because the more you give it, the more search will be able to find. So you can go both very general, it shows a landscape, but if you have the name of the landscape or the name of specific mountains or a specific lake or a specific building in the photo, please add these as well. So yes, use the P180 statement for that, the depict statement. I hope that answers the question. Feel free to check this page. Also, if you want to be involved, if you're triggered by this whole new thing happening on Commons, by all means, feel free to be part of the discussion also onto how we want to do this better. Because we are not yet at a point of Wikidata where we are going towards an established best practice for things. Even on Wikidata, we don't have that yet, but especially on Commons, it's still upcoming. So yeah, any other questions?
I think so, Sandra. I think we can move forward.
Okay, then we will indeed move forward. I'm getting at the end of my presentation, and I think in terms of timing, that looks quite good, I think. Okay, now we can leave the confusing things alone. So I told you start first. I told you already that we don't really have the full text search. My colleagues are working super hard on it, and it's technically not super simple to do, to make sure that people find things on Commons. there are a lot of complexities about it. What you can already use some tricks to find structured data on Wikimedia Commons, though, and it is through this way. I will demonstrate it to you because that will help you also doing the exercises later in the afternoon and the practical work. What you can do at this moment is to add in the search field on Commons the string. It is a bit a strange construction. I think you can even use it on Wikidata as well as a search method. You can say has WB, which stands for Wikibase, has WB statement, colon, and then you add the property number. In this case, we have P180 for depicts. And in that way, you search for all the files that have a depict statement. And whoa, we already have 600,000 files with depict statements. That's really great. That's really awesome. We hope to have at least 5 million by the end of the year, but this is a super good start. You can also search for other Ps. You can search for what other statements is already being used, creator. I think that's 170, if I'm not mistaken. Let's just try this. I have linked these also from the info page about this specific session, so you can find these links there. These are all the files, 11,000 of them, that have a creator statement, etc., etc. This is the basic way in which you can do that. Going back to the depict statements, you can also even search for specific depicted things. Let me see. This one is the Giant's Causeway. You need a Wikidata item queue number for that. So now I'm going to do a little bit of looking ad hoc while my page is loading. So this is the Giant's Causeway in Ireland. I've never seen it in real life, but it's apparently amazing. Going to the structured data, I'm going to click on it, and then I have the queue number here. I'm just going to copy the queue number, and then going back to the search. When I do equals this queue number, so has WB statement colon P180 equals this queue number, search, then it will find all the images that already have depicts the Giant's Causeway, and that's these. That's not bad. That's actually quite good. Someone has already done quite a bit of work on that, maybe by bots as well. I don't know. In a similar way, you combine all kinds of statement pairs. So this is the basic way that you can search at the moment, and it's quite interesting to do that, to see how often certain properties have been used already. Just as a practical help, when you start working on things this afternoon, then you can use this. As I said, I've added the links. I don't think I actually added the link to look for a specific statement. So I will remember when I'm finished with the presentation to add this example as well to your page so that you can find it. But as I said, in the near future, I hope in one of the upcoming months, we will also enable like the full text search. So when you will search in Portuguese for this specific insect, for instance, if it has a Portuguese name, you should also be able to find it. It will be a gadget, so it will not be the central search of Wikimedia Commons, but it will be a gadget that I think, if I'm not mistaken, will be turned on automatically. So you can turn it off if you don't want, because it is a bit more complicated than the current search, and it can be a bit confusing for beginning users. So that's why we want to have it as an additional gadget for people who want to use it. We've done a lot of thinking about making it simpler, but it's difficult to make it simple. But better search is coming.
Sandra, is there a way to search for the statement digital representation of?
Yes, if you look up the P number for that, let's see. I'm gonna search for it quickly on Wikidata. I don't know this one by heart. Digital. It's P6243. I will make my font a bit bigger. Okay. I'm going back. 6243 it was, huh? 2, 4, 3, search. I think we will have a few 100,000 as well, 112,000. And that's all multi-chill's work, I think, most of it. That's multi-chill's, but you can switch actually. Now it searches by relevance, and I have absolutely no idea what relevance means, but you can make it the recently edited ones on top. And that will give a different order. So you can see which ones he edited most lately. This is actually from Museum Around the Corner here. That's funny. So he's busy. It's 8 August, so I think his bot is even running almost right now. But yeah, so this is currently the best thing that we have for search. It is, of course, super basic. Ideally, at some point, of course, we want to be able to query. Actually, the next thing I wanted indeed to tell you a bit more in depth is the next things that are coming. The data types I already mentioned. The search is coming, depicts of depicts, annotations. That's basically what we talked about earlier, that you want to indicate in an image a specific area and say this specific area shows this specific person. Annotations will be also deployed. Querying, Sparkle querying. Stas, who also works on the Wikidata query engine, is now also working to make it possible to query Wikimedia Commons. I'm not super totally aware how he thinks about combining both, because that would be, of course, super powerful. That you can, of course, say, you know, show me digital files that depict artworks that then depict certain things, and that you combine, you know, querying Wikidata, Wikimedia Commons. That looks like federated querying. I don't know how quickly that will be deployed. Other things that will be that are in the pipeline, that are being planned, is also something that my team is working on at this moment, is the upload wizard on Wikimedia Commons. I don't know if there are people in the room who work on Wikilove's monuments at all, or who have done other Wikilove's campaigns.
Everyone in the room, so.
Well, there you go. So for campaigns, you can make custom upload wizards, right? And actually, there is an update coming for upload wizard that you can also customize it with structured data. So if you use data that is on Wikidata, I don't know if that's the case in Brazil, but some countries have already their monuments database on Wikidata. Or I don't know if Wikilove's Earth is a thing, you might want to link to Wikidata items of depicted animals or depicted natural reserves or something like that. So if you want to add structured data through campaigns, it will be possible quite soon, I think. It's something that my team is working on at the moment. So if you're interested in trying an upload wizard and a new Wikilove's monuments, or Wikilove's Earth, or another campaign that uses a specific upload wizard, a customized one with structured data, it should become possible. And actually, we're looking for testers. So if someone of you has access to upload wizards and customizing it and wants to test things, I would totally welcome you to do that, because we're looking for testers. But so that is coming. That is definitely something we still want to support this year. At this moment, as I said earlier, we're also looking at support for Lua, so that you can use data from Commons in other wikis with Lua, the Lua language, including on Commons itself in templates. And then something that is happening a little bit more in the background, but it's also, I think, quite powerful, is that one of my colleagues at the foundation, Miriam Redi from the research team, she has specialized in machine vision and artificial intelligence for images. And we are also experimenting with artificial intelligence checking of what is depicted in images to help the community determine that. So you have to think of a system that we will, put in a special page where we will have artificial intelligence, machine vision software going through sets of images and then suggesting, maybe this image depicts a cat, maybe this image depicts a certain building, maybe this image depicts this and that. And you just have to, say, okay, machine, you were wrong or you were right. So it should help with depicts. And that's also something we're at this moment investigating. So these are the things that are certainly in the pipeline. It's a lot of things to do in the next 4 months. So please be patient with us. My team, my colleagues are working extremely hard, but most of these things done, and some of them are already quite far developed, and we are finalizing a lot of them, including the Wikilove's Monuments upload wizard. Any questions so far? This, of course, ties into what's coming after 2019, which I answered very vaguely. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. No questions?
I have a question. So, particularly to the Wikilove's Monument, customization is a hard word.
Yes.
So the way that
Yes.
we are already building the campaign, we've already created an upload wizard, a structured upload wizard on which people will upload based on the Wikidata number. So as a way of, from our end, improving diversity of what is represented. So we'll provide, for instance, incentives for people to uploading images of stuff we don't have documented on Commons. So what else are you envisioning for this use of structured data on Commons for the campaign?
Exactly that. I think what you are probably currently doing is, well, I'm just imagining, but please confirm if I'm correct. So if I have a picture of something that doesn't have a photo yet on Commons and on Wikidata, I will upload to your campaign, and then it will probably add that image to the Wikidata as item as well. Is that correct? Or does that not happen automatically?
Not automatically, but we will run about.
Automatically, yeah. Okay. So what does it do? Does it actually add the Wikidata link in the template now?
Yes.
On the Commons image? I see. So what we are adding as functionality is that you can predefine certain things that you can actually integrate into the structured data itself. So what you are doing now is still adding the Wikidata link in the wiki text, but you will also be able to have these depicted buildings or other queue items in the structured data tab immediately. And you will also be able to say from a campaign that maybe you don't just only want these specific places, but you should also be able to, I think, I'm not totally up to date on the very, very, very recent developments there, but you should be able to refine it a little bit geographically, at least, to say, it should only be related to Brazil, query-based, I think, that you have a subset of things that only people can photograph. And you should also be able to say there should be multiple structured fields. So maybe you want it automatically to be tagged also with structured data with your specific 2019 Wikilove's Monuments campaign item. Maybe you want other things to be tagged automatically, like the license, but maybe there are other things even that I'm not thinking about. But all this then would immediately go into the structured data tab as well. So not just in the wiki text, but in the structured data tab. And this customization that you can define as a campaign manager, what fields you want to be there, that is a new part of it, and that it is included in the workflow for uploading for your people that participate in the contest. So it's actually working with the core structured data that is added as a new thing.
I have a quick question. How to become a tester?
Oh, I will link you the Fabricator ticket. Is that good? There is a Fabricator. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Fabricator. Is the place where we track our bugs. And if you look for, I'm not going to throw away this tab because it's helpful. Fabricator. If you search for campaigns structured data, I think you should be able to find it, the task. Also, you can just give your name to Joao, and then Joao can email me, or you can email me directly. All of that is perfect. I will get you in touch. But it's actually here in the ticket. Let me see. So this is the overarching task. and then it's probably under one of these. I have to look a little bit, but it's in one of the fabricator tasks. It's not here. Anyway, I will find it for you. That's the brief answer. I can get you in touch. But yes, thank you for volunteering to do that, because we definitely would love more testers.
Sandra, we're gonna have some kind of visual search, for example. Now we structure our things in categories, and we can see all the pictures that we have there.
Yeah.
Now in the structure commons, we click and go to Wikidata. But I want to know if you're gonna have something like, I click on this structured data and show me all these things, or in category, I can see, for example, inside this category, how many of this kind of things show up. For example, if I have birds in the landscape, I want to find a picture that have a bird in certain landscape. I enter the category of this landscape and, I don't know, type birds, and this bird appears. You're gonna have something like that, more visual?
Yeah, search at this moment is not the same kind of experience that you usually have with other image websites, right? If you have search on Flickr, it looks a lot more visual, and you get a lot more beautiful kind of overview of your search results. The new Creative Commons search is also like that. And the search that we currently have on Wikimedia Commons is really basically it's the old style media wiki search, and you get this very boring list of images, and then the categories help a little bit with that. To answer your question, my design colleague Pam has been thinking quite a long time already about how to improve search, and indeed, as you say, with structured data tags, it's going to help to make at least produce more relevant results for people. If you want to combine things like indeed this specific landscape, and I want to see birds, but then indeed, how should the search results display? And I know that there have been already all kinds of design drawings to do that. But all of this is really technically complicated to implement, I have to say. And I know that especially before the end of this year, what we will provide is only very basic support. And I don't know if it's all going to be very visual yet. I would say if you are really enthusiastic and passionate about seeing a much better search, I would definitely like to see that on Commons. It would make Commons so much nicer and so much better. And it's again, please be vocal about it. I'm definitely making a note of your remark here, and I think it's definitely something that would be worth putting a lot more resources in. But at this moment, it's probably still going to be quite simple.
And I have another question. We have also videos, right?
Yeah.
And we can see in some place in the future, I don't know, a timing, structured timing that shows in this point we see this kind of spikes. In this time we can see this kind of spikes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the kind of thing that you would also perfectly be able to model in structured data and then have it interact with the video. And I'm quite sure that that's something that more people in our community would be interested in. I think that these are very typically the kind of things that I would really encourage you to start experimenting with if you're interested in that. Experimenting with how you want to describe that on Wikimedia Commons in the structured data. Like, for instance, like from 1:30, this specific person is speaking. You could have a time code and something and saying, depicts person starting at time, and then you have a specific time, something like that. So yes, it should be technically possible, and it's definitely something to think about when modeling. It is not something that we are already from the team thinking about supporting, because we first want to see what the community wants in terms of functionality with it. So we first want to look a little bit at what you will be doing in terms of which files do you choose first to describe, what kind of information do you want to store, and then we want to look again, can we improve the interface for it, etc. So, and that's a very good example of that. So if this is something that we consider helpful, like timed moments for video, I think that's a very beautiful, for audio as well, right? From this moment, this specific piece starts, I think also, the case of publications, PDFs with multiple pages, you want to maybe be able to refer to, at this specific moment, this story starts, at this specific point in the PDF, this story starts, all these things. It's very impossible to model it, but we are only at the beginning of doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Also, I think we've already had you a lot. I think we could spend the whole day here talking about what we could develop and what we could envision, but I think you also have other and better stuff to do. And
no, I love being with you. I still have some more slides to show you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not very many. Just to get you started also on, more practical work this afternoon. So maybe I can just go through them and then answer the last questions that are there, maybe ends in 15 minutes or something like that. Is that okay with everyone?
Sure, of course, thank you.
Yeah, I think I really only have like 3-4 slides left. So no, it's even more. Okay, okay, there we go. Let's see. So I told you what we are going to work on in the next months at least. A question that I've gotten already, or I've seen a lot already through social media is, can we already do batch uploads and batch edits? We've had a question earlier, can we do bot work? Yes, you can do bot work if you are familiar with, programming with PyWikiBot or scripting PyWikiBot tasks, then you can do that already. Some of the most important tools that us non-coders use to upload things to Wikimedia Commons don't support it yet, but I expect that will come soon. PattyPen for uploading files to Wikimedia Commons from a spreadsheet. I hope actually that's at Wikimania, Pavel, the developer of PattyPen, I think he will be there, and hopefully we can talk with him how we can help him to implement that as well. I can imagine that something like OpenRefine, I'm sure that many people in the room might have used OpenRefine already, can also be used to edit Commons at some point and to upload files to Commons. That can also have support. Quick statements by Magnus Manske. I heard from Lukas from Wikimedia Deutschland, Lukas Werkmeister, that quick statements already supports Commons, but it's very shaky. So don't do crazy things with it yet, as I said before. But so batch things, we expect that our volunteer community, our volunteer developers will step up in the upcoming months and that there will be more tools. At this moment, not yet, but it will come. One tool that I want to tell you a little bit about is actually it's a pilot for structured data and commons, also a GLAM pilot. We are developing together with the people from Wiki Loves Africa and with the people from Histropedia. I don't know if you know that, but that's a tool with timelines that you can build on top of Wikidata. These people, and with Eugene Egbe, developer from Cameroon, we are building a micro contributions tool for Wikimedia Commons, where you can very simply add depict statements to files, to categories of files. And that's maybe also something to try out. I have to say it is still under development. We're almost there, but every now and then the tool is still offline and we still have some small bugs to iron out. But it's one of the first very simple user-friendly tools that you can use, to just swipe through your phone or click through your telephone. It's very mobile friendly. And then one by one on an image, you can say this depicts a cow, this depicts this depicts that. So many little tools are being built already. I just wanted to end with all kinds of things to do at this moment. I've repeated many different times that we still have to figure out the data model for things. We don't know how to model certain things. How will we say that we have certain time indicators in a video, just to go back to the previous question? Or how will we say that a file comes from a specific source, etc.? There is one page on Wikimedia Commons where our community has already started discussing this months ago before before even the properties were being deployed, and that's our so-called properties table. So this is something I think you can refer to when this afternoon you want to start doing practical work, is to look at this table and to see if all these abstract thinking, like the properties that we might use for files on Commons, does this work? Are we missing some? And that is definitely something where you can help, where you can actively contribute to the project, is to help us, to be part of the community that thinks about this data modeling. And by all means, feel free to edit this table. Another thing that you can already do is, if you really figure out this afternoon that you need other Commons properties on Wikidata, you can just propose them on Commons, on Wikidata. So if you need specific new property like this digital representation of, you just have to propose it like a regular other property on Wikidata. Just go to property proposals, you go to other Wikimedia projects, and then you will find a link to Commons and you can propose it there. That's a very helpful thing to do at this moment. Let me see. Oh, one thing I wanted to make you aware of is I've also shown a bit of examples of licenses for files. So you can already see that certain files have a certain copyright status, a certain license. There is already quite a bit of work on Wikidata about this. I'm not sure if anyone in the room is already familiar with this, but I'm super excited about it actually. This is work from mainly two community members. It's Jarek Tushinsky, user Jarek T, and Hanno Lans, a Dutch Wikimedian. And they are trying to figure out how we should model copyrights on Wikidata and for files on Wikimedia Commons. So if you find, complicated copyright situations that you want to model, this is the information page and the documentation page that you can refer to. It is called Help Copyrights on Wikidata. And I can try to click on it if I find my mouse again. Okay. And it has a lot of very specific documentation on how to do that. This is something that this afternoon, if you are a copyright nerd, that will bring you a lot of joy. And if you're not a copyright nerd, it will make you cry. So I don't know on which side you are. If you're a Wikimedian, it's probably one of both. You will probably have an opinion. Yeah, that's basically my last informative slides. This copyright modeling is already far evolved, but there's still a lot of things to do as well. So it's the same there. If you find situations that are not documented there yet, please just feel free, be bold, engage. Don't be shy, because Jarek and Hanno are super, super nice people, and they will be very happy to hear your input and to see your examples. So that's something to look at. Yeah, and then what I had envisioned, but you're, the bosses of your own time, what might be nice things to do this afternoon is add structured data to existing Commons files. And I would find it really nice to try to work with very diverse files. I've shown you examples of a simple photograph, of a photo of a sculpture, of a painting, but there are many, many other different things. And I think Joao already shared a folder with me of a recent activity you did, where you have a mix of archival photographs, you have some digitized publications that's super interesting and probably very complex. You have new photographs that are taken by volunteers. Diverse files, play with them, try to describe them with structured data. At least that's what I would find a super interesting exercise. If there are things that you cannot describe yet, I would actually find it super helpful if either you would record them somewhere or you would document them somewhere, maybe on the page of the today's session, or another page, or maybe on an Etherpad or a Google document or something. I will be very happy to review that. I've put the links there that you can check. So the properties table, the help copyrights, and just to give you examples and inspiration, all the kinds of diverse files that you could work with is digital born photos, digitized photos. These are two different things, paper photos that were digitized. 3D files, that's also something. I'm not sure if you have had any Brazilian collaborations that have had three-dimensional, 3D scans, but maybe if you have those, super exciting to work with that. illustrations, vector graphics. I think I remember that you also have these mathematical, models. These would be super awesome to, try to figure out. Audio files, videos, people, animals, etc. So that would be my suggestion for work this afternoon. But I would say by all means, everything that you try is super, super useful. And you will be pioneers in this. So I'm, super excited about you there in Brazil, being one of the communities that works with this one of the first people. And yeah, I would very much look forward to what you find. So that would be my last motivational thing to say to you as an end of my presentation. But yeah, for now, I was wondering if you indeed were planning to do those kinds of things, maybe work with previous GLAM files, or if you have any follow-up questions on anything that I have told you or presented to you earlier. Yeah, any questions are welcome.
I have one question, Sandra.
Yes.
Visual file changes allow us to do this path. We're gonna have some support to do this, use this for included slides.
Yeah. So visual file change is also a volunteer tool. It is a tool that is managed by a volunteer developer. It's not something supported by the foundation. So if you wanted to have support for structured data, it's probably good to ask the developers to try to figure out either if the tool has some kind of, if it's on Fabricator, to file a Fabricator task there, or to put it on GitHub as a tool, if the tool has GitHub. I can also imagine that maybe someone like Magnus might step up, and quick statements could do something similar, I think, at a certain point. So you can wait for quick statements to allow you to do these things. But yeah, so the short answer is I cannot influence what happens with visual file change. It's a volunteer gadget and tool.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just so I also clarify what we were, so based on what you presented and also what we had discussed before. So the idea is exactly what you said. So it's to experiment. So I think we are still trying to understand how it works. We have, as you know, uploaded so many files, particularly on GLAM initiatives, that I think we can definitely work with diversity and eventually even establish will be like 8-9 people. So okay, each one of us go for one direction, and then at the end of our practical section, we can actually discuss and even report to you what we found as opportunities or challenges, or as you put it, caveats. I didn't know it was.
Yes, that was the word indeed. Yeah.
I've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think
But
that's
that's super awesome. Yeah, I don't know if there are people in the room who also do bot work. If I can imagine that it can also be super interesting to just to look at how to operate a bot and to do bot-driven edits. I know that Multichill has documented his work also on Fabricator. So if there's someone in the room who wants to do stuff with bots, I would look at the recent edits from Multichill on Fabricator and the recent tasks that he has been working on, because there you will find also a link to the documentation that he has for that specifically. And yeah, that can also be something nice. I'm wondering also, next week we have Wikimania, and I think Joao, are you going to Wikimania, to the conference?
No, I'm not, but 2 people in the room are going. So
okay. Yeah, because I will have a very similar session to this one also at Wikimania, also a tutorial, but there will also be a modeling session. It has a bit of a vague name. But if people here in the room are enthusiastic about this modeling aspect, I would very, very much welcome you to be part of that session as well. And I will be super happy to hear about your experiences there, and you can tell about it during the session if you're okay with that at least. So yeah, that's an invitation there at least. I think Giovanna, you will be there. Is that correct?
Yes, I will be there. I don't know if you remember about it, but I'm I'm a space leader on the GLAM space.
Yeah, true.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm definitely going to see your presentation. So
Cool, lovely.
you wanna? Heather is going to be there as well. So
Good. Looking forward.
Any other questions in the room, on the YouTube channel, Facebook? We are everywhere.
You have a true control room there.
Yeah, organizing everything, but at least from the YouTube channel, let me check just Facebook. Okay, so digitally we are all set, people in the room.
Super. Well.
Okay, so Sandra, thank you again so much. This is always inspirational. I'm always super impressed by how fast the development of these deployments happen. And I'm really amazed by how this will actually change not only the way we do things, but the way that we think about the work, the process, and the media files. I think you said there is a pioneer aspect on what we are doing. I think this is definitely changed the way that we think of the ecology of knowledge. I don't think there is any project that I'm aware of that is dealing in the same level of ambition, or as you said, you're even developing a systemic process with artificial intelligence. There is a crowdsourcing understanding of how we can deal with this media file. This is at the same time very ambitious, very democratic, very participatory. I think this is a real case of success for our community and the movement. And as a volunteer, I'm very thankful for all the effort and the work that you and the team have done on these features, on this project. And I think this is really changing what Wikimedia is, or what the contributions that we do are. And so I think I'm speaking for everyone in the room or on the YouTube channel or on the Facebook, that we are super impressed. And so thank you so much for everything you've done and you are still doing.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me, and it's always great to work with you, with your group. And I think you are on your side doing, as I said, amazing work also on Wikidata and on GLAM. And yeah, from my side, whenever I can support you, let me know.
Thank you so much, Sandra.
Thanks. And good luck, everyone, this afternoon. I hope you have fun.
Bye. Bye.
Okay. Well, I will sign off. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a good lunch.